Hi Flute students! I have a few tips and this is one of my first. It's about putting away your flute properly to make sure that you protect all of the wonderful parts of your flute, like the pads especially, which if they get ruined, it's an expensive fix. So if your pads are not completely dry in your case, eventually you're going to need to get them replaced prematurely, and that is a $300 fix. So you really don't want that to happen very often. It also means time off from your flute, and you know you're going to miss your flute. You know, she gets lonely without you, and you get lonely without her. So let's figure out how to preserve the life of your pads. Here we go. First of all, when you take your flute apart, the first thing you need to do is swab it out. Now, I always like to keep a cloth. This is an old diaper from my baby raising days, and I keep it on my lap. So, you know, you have your flute, your white cloth on the lap, and then you have your cloth that you use. I am using a Beaumont's flute swab, which is an expensive bamboo decorative flute swab. I don't think you need to pay a lot of money for a good flute swab. I have a couple of rags that work pretty well too, so you know, you don't have to. But anyway, you put it through the loop here. If you're a newbie, it's important to cover that metal part because you don't want to scratch your flute. And you take your flute and you just stick it in the end here, swab it out. Now also there's going to be accumulation of condensation moisture on this part of the flute. You're going to make sure they get that plenty dry. That's why I have this extra cloth. And also you want to get the lip plate. This is the lip plate. You want to get that nice and dry. Go in there a little bit and get it nice and dry and shine it a little while you're at it. And then you put it back in the case. All right, so we have our swab. Next you will go to the midsection, the torso as you were, the middle of the flute. And you're going to swab that too. And then my flute swab doesn't go all the way to the end, so I have to do it both ways, this way. And while I'm at it, this little point right here, it also gets condensation. You're going to want to wipe that too. And then you turn it around and you let it go in the other way to make sure you get all that flute dry. And leave it in there for just a second so it has time to absorb that moisture. All right. And then, this is a very important part. You're going to get another cloth, and this is my favorite cloth. I don't even know what it is. It might be torn off of an old cleaning cloth that I had. At any rate, it's the perfect thickness. It's kind of thin there, and it's also very soft, absorbent cotton. And I put it underneath, you see these keys? I just slide it underneath the keys, as it were. You'll see in a moment how it looks. It looks like you're flossing your keys. You know, like you floss your teeth every night. You do floss your teeth every night, right? Uh-huh. Sure you do. Anyway, floss your keys. But make sure that they're up when you do that. You pat them down a bit, you know, so the pads will get, you know, pressed in. But then when you take it out, do not have it pressed while you pull it out. The pads are covered with a very, very thin, delicate skin. And if you pull while pressing on those keys, you're going to ruin that. So you don't want that to happen. So you never pull while pressing. So then you do it for the other keys that are past the A flat key. So you do it to these keys, all these keys, and then past the A flat key. Same method. You put the cloth in, and you floss your keys like you floss your teeth. Once again, please floss your teeth. I know I'm not your mother, but I think she would agree with me. Floss once a day. And so you floss in here gently, you know, right there. And then you've got them all the way in, and you press them a little bit. Press on them so that any additional moisture gets taken up by that cloth. But when you pull it out, you're not pressing. So it comes right out. All right, then you got to look at the back of the flute. The back of the flute, now mine has a thumb port. That's why it looks weird, and I'll talk about that in another video. But the back of the flute has 1, 2, 3, 4 keys. 4 keys that need to be done. Now listen up carefully. This key here and these 2 right here are naturally down. They automatically stay down unless you press certain keys here. So they're going to be down. So that means when you put your cloth in to clean them, you're going to actually have to physically lift those keys to slide it in. So I'm just going to pull these first 2 tiny little keys up and put that in there. Now you see how that hangs? It's because if you're not doing anything, these keys stay shut. So I don't have to press on them to get them dry. They'll just dry. But if I pull this cloth out, I'm messing up the little tiny fine paper stuff on the top of the key fabric. So I don't want to do that. So what I have to do is I have to lift them again and let this fall out. Watch. There we go. Let me pull it out a little bit. Right. Gentle, gentle. All right. The middle of the thumb key, it stays up as a default, just like the other keys that we've done on the other side of it. So you do have to press it in, or it won't stay, as you see. Press it in, and as you're doing it, polish those keys a bit. Just press and polish, and then just pull it out. And then this key is another one of those keys that is naturally closed. You're going to have to lift it up. I know you can't see me doing this. To lift this key up here, right here, put your cloth in. And some people use cigarette paper. Some people say use a dollar bill. Don't use a dollar bill. Dollar bills are filthy, okay? So you can use cigarette paper if you want, but why go to the expense? These are washable. You can reuse them. So I'm polishing this as I'm pressing it at the same time. All right, and then I lift it a little bit. And as I lift it, it will fall out. There you go, nice and gentle. So then I give it a quick little polish before I put it in the case because I love it shiny. And you don't want, if it's, you don't want it to tarnish, silver, even nickel. So you give it a quick little gentle, gentle, gentle. All right, and then you put that in your case correctly. And basically you do the same thing with this one. This one has one key that is default shut. It's controlled by this key, so you can just slide in this key, this right in there. Polish it as you do it, and then press this to let it out. These are by default open, so you slide it in. And the advantage of this is that the cloth, it goes all the way up the flute here. So as you see, I'm actually kind of like, I'm getting to the springs as well, so that your springs don't get dusty, which is very, very common with flute players, ugly, dusty springs, which can actually cause problems. So you want to just keep those clean too. All right, it should come right out. You give it a nice polish, and you just stick it in your case. All right, and then there's one little tip I have for you. This is kind of a trick I learned from another flutist. We learn so much from each other. Definitely go on Facebook and follow some of the wonderful groups on there about flute. They have flute players from all levels, and they're constantly coming up with interesting ideas. In order to keep your flute dry, you never, ever, ever leave a cloth or a swab. This is my swab I use when I'm in a hurry. Never leave a swab inside the flute. It will hold the moisture and cause rot. So you don't leave a swab in there. You don't leave a cloth in there. What you do put in there, however, and this is a neat trick, is these little silicone doodads. Okay, so where do you get these? Every time you purchase a bottle of Tylenol or allergy medicine or vitamins, most of the time they're going to have these silica gel inserts. Now, some of them are little packets that say do not eat, and don't eat them. I don't know why you would, but anyway, they all say don't eat, and that's really good advice because they're not food. But they're made of these little silica gels, and they absorb moisture like magic. So what you want to do is stick one of these or two of them in the largest part of the flute that has keys before you put it in your case. And then another one in the end, the foot joint. Silica insert in the foot joint. You want it as dry as possible. This keeps it really dry. So even if you didn't manage to get all the moisture out of the pads, I mean, you don't have to sit there for 10 minutes cleaning your flute. Sometimes you're in a hurry, but if you have these little silica guys, you know you're pretty safe. Ooh, I felt a little moisture there. Not a good thing. I don't know why that happened. At any rate, I'm not scared. I got my silica gel. Ideally, you have more than me. You have like 3 or 4 of them. Completely unnecessary to put a silica gel insert in the head joint, I think, because it doesn't have keys, and the keys are what you're trying to prevent from getting wet and staying wet. However, it does have a cork, and you know, it might benefit the life of the cork to keep it dry as well. All right, so that's it. That's it for putting the flute away. A little piece of advice. You're not going to want to go through this whole rigmarole every single time you play the flute, because I don't know about you, but I like to practice in segments throughout the day because I get exhausted if I practice 2 hours at a time. I want to go eat lunch and take a walk and then maybe brush my teeth before I play again so I don't get junk in the flute. But, you know, I don't necessarily want to do a full bore cleaning all the time. So that's why I have this swab here. Sometimes you don't have time. You're in a gig and you really have to put it away fast and get out of there. So these little swabs are pretty good for that. They are not for everyday use. You're supposed to really clean it at least at the end of the day. So if you have to get out of there quick, this is a solution, especially if you have those silica gel inserts. You know, stick several of those in there if you don't think you've gotten it quite dry enough, but you really have to go, you know, band is over or whatever. Stick those silica gel inserts, clean it with a swab, and get out of there if you have to, okay? All right, one other thing, flute stands. They exist. They're sticks, and you stick your flute on it when you want to take a break. They are only good for 5-minute breaks, and that you're going to come back. Because if you let that spit and condensation dry inside your flute, you're going to come out with a black residue. It's absolutely disgusting, and the people next to you will smell it. So please make sure you at least swab and at least put the silica gel inserts in there. All right, well, that's my flute tips for today. Putting away the flute. Very important how you do it. Thank you.